Mr. King, good morning. Dave, how are you? Marco. Is my, let's see. Camera might be a little fuzzy, but might need a new camera. Good morning, Miguel, Prath, Noah, Dominic, Milan. How are you guys? Sorry, I was 2 minutes late. I was just chit-chatting in the room. Hope everybody had themselves a good evening and a good week. Mr. Takeshi, how are you guys, man? Chrome, Yo Miso, you guys all got. I love the names. I don't know how I decided on Real Simple Air. Hey, what's up, bud? Someone's coming to say hi. Hey, boy. What is it? Lay down. Lay down. One day I got to tell my story. It's like a movie. I will. If anybody doesn't already know it, I'll definitely have to share it. There will be, I did an interview with Words of Wisdom, and I'll be sure to, once that's out, whenever, probably another month or so, I'll pin that to my page, and I'll make sure you guys get to see that. It should be a great interview. And then I did the Chart Fanatics, that one with them as well. That one should actually be super awesome too. But yeah, my story is interesting. How do I say it? From prison to penthouse in just 5 years. For Dave, if you're not familiar, yeah, I was in prison in 2018 for some weed. So for 18 months, I was locked up. Yeah, for some people who don't already know. And I probably had the fastest start to a trading career that any human's ever had. Effectively 30,000 to 3.5 million in 16 months. But I'll dive into the how and the why for anybody some other time. I've got a little golden doodle. Yeah, there is an interview. I did an interview with Investors Underground, and I go into how I was day trading. The thing is, you have to remember, when I was day trading in 2020 and in 21, early 21, the market was ridiculously hot, right? The market was very forgiving. All dips were good dips. The market was on fire. Sympathy plays galore. That's the key. Is the sympathy plays is really what was my bread and butter. So yeah, sympathy plays was my bread and butter. So like you would get the lead runner, and then I would go piling into the one that I thought would move after. The stock doc. Do you size heavy with margin intraday and peel back quickly into strength, or more of a starter position approach? One, I don't like the phrase starter position, because starter position just means that you're not confident in the setup that you're trading, right? Like if the market's underneath the 200 and you're just trying to gain traction with your first few positions, then a 5% portfolio position is the way I like to think about it. If it's a little bit slower of a mover in terms of ADR, right, 10% position. But I don't ever really like the thought of it's a starter position. Like what does that mean? Starter position to me means you're not confident. And do I size heavy with margin intraday? That would be very, very difficult to do with my portfolio. You could. hypothetically, if I'm hammering the hell out of Tesla and Nvidia, right, it's not that difficult to put 20, 30, $40 million in there in the day and then peel a bunch back. But yeah, I don't focus on, I'm a swing trader, stock doc. So my focus is, size right, buy right, and then sit tight, right? So, position sizing, progressive exposure are the two things you probably will hear me talk about most. And then obviously the setup, and then timing it with market direction, and then take it one step further, being in a good group, and then, take it one step further. Does that stock that's got good technicals also have good earnings and sales? So yeah, there's like layers to what I'm doing. So I'm never just hammering, when I was day trading, when I had $100,000 account and there was a $50 stock ripping, buy 2,500 or 3,000 shares, oversize the hell out of a position in like the hottest market ever, and then scale out most and let some work. But I can't do that now. Unfortunately, that is not a scalable way to trade. So my thoughts on Archer: love the move on that's happened after earnings, and it had this nice flat base. In fact, we were even talking about it going into 5.2, and then over $9, and here we are, 13. So it's gone now. It's gone. I liked it right in here too. As I was getting over the 200, pulled back nice and clean, falling volume, pick up in volume as it took back off. Very nice. Yeah, market still seems to be strong today, but I don't really see any stocks that are in buyable positions. So that's more important than where I think the market is, right? Because not only do I know in the back of my mind that the market likely needs a breather, and if it doesn't take a breather, then I still have CLS, Crowd, some KGC, which is gapping down on me a little bit overnight, Netflix, TMDX, Toast, Tesla, Uber. So I am still very much long the market. So if the market wants to continue higher, cool. I don't really care. But in terms of like adding more of my money to work, there's just not really that option right now because there are no tight charts, right? There is more risk in buying names right now because look at this. You got names like Uber that are just vertical for the last few weeks, right? And I bought this thing at 75, right? And it's not the only one. You go ahead and look at something like Rubric, right off the undercut rally, just vertical. You got something like SE, just completely vertical. You got something like Zscaler, completely vertical. Melly is the same deal. Just completely vertical. I can go on, and the list, it looks a whole lot like that one, right? The strongest names in the market are doing exactly that. And, while that's good, that doesn't induce FOMO. And the reason I don't get FOMO is because I already did my job, right? My job was to find setups while the market was starting to turn back up out of a correction. And I did that, right? When the market was going down, I was already spotting the stocks that had the best relative strength. So, and then buy them as the market was turning back up out of clean setups. At what portfolio size, liquidity and exit really matter? Depends your strategy, man. But once you start to get to 20 million, 10 million, something like that, right? Like I want to get all of my money plus margin into work, but you really shouldn't do that in just one stock in one day, right? Effectively, you become a day trader, and it's too much emotion, and you're like paring back a bunch of size and then re-entering the whole thing. Like that's not my style. I want to keep my losses super, super small. I don't like taking big drawdowns off the highs. I like sitting in big trends when they occur. So, it's different for everybody, but I kind of use the Bill O'Neill, Mark Minervini, Dan Zanger, Christian Koulamagi approach, right? Somewhere in between all four of those guys, and then on the short side, something like a Gil Morales for, swing shorting. How do I attribute different stock screening criteria to different market caps? How do you determine criteria significance? The only things I really care about are what stocks are showing relative strength over a 30, 60, 90, and 180-day period. And then I do the better job of taking it one step further, of saying to myself, okay, this bundle of stocks, right? These, 200 names all have like a 90 plus relative strength compared to their peers. Okay, fine. Are any of these in a very similar group, like aerospace and defense, like cybersecurity, like semiconductors, et cetera? And then do I understand a nice, clean technical setup? Okay. And then do those stocks have good earnings and sales? Fine. What's their average daily range? That's another thing I like to know. I don't want to own stocks that are super slow. And then what's the daily dollar volume on them, right? Do they trade more than, $45 million, $50 million, $100 million, $1 billion a day, right? Like I want to know what they trade every single day. HSAI, not bad. Yeah, I actually bought HSAI on the little gap up here. And then I cut it. I cut it, I think, right under this day's low. So literally at the lows. So it's like right back to where I actually bought it a few days ago. What about Saddle EP? I like the base. I really like the base. But again, the issue for me is, and maybe not for you, it trades not enough volume, right? $4.6 million per day. I mean, I've had bigger positions than that myself, right? And this thing trades that in the entirety of the day. So, you got to trade names that are liquid enough for your portfolio. And unfortunately, SATL doesn't make the cut for me. Kind of sucks, but, nice base. It's just not one I can trade. If this thing traded 5 million or 4 million shares a day and was a $20 stock, well, then we'd be having a different conversation. Yep, Netflix is the only name that consolidated for a couple weeks in the leaders. Yeah. Well, I own Netflix from 2019, so love this. This was a nice little flag. I was hoping for like 2 more days, so it would complete the 3 weeks tight pattern, but it decided to go make a new high preemptively. So, I didn't add to it. I'm just trailing it, using effectively 1100 as my stop. So, and I own it from 1019. So we'll see. Hopefully the 50-day will catch up in a few weeks. My thought on ACAD, rallied on earnings a few weeks ago, then consolidated. Let's see. Yeah. It's not that special. It's not that special, right? It's still in this stage 1 base. Still in this big stage 1 base. Just trying to finish out, this sideways consolidation. The 200's not really turned up yet. Right? Like, Doug, think about it like this. You only need 8 to 10 names roughly, maybe even 6 to 10, 6 to 12 even, depending on how aggressive you get per position, to fill out an entire portfolio, right? So if you were to say to yourself, what are the most liquid that feel like institutional quality stocks right now, that just continue to trend higher, right? So I can run some through, in my head and just say them out loud, and you can say if you agree. So recently, some of the best names have been Palantir, Hood, Uber, Toast, NVIDIA, Tesla, and then recent earnings gap ups in Sezzle, Dave, cybersecurity stocks like CrowdStrike, Rubrik, Okta, Zscaler, right? So all of a sudden, I just said way more than 10 names, right? And then if you go to like the power generation names, you got NRG, got GEV, you got CEG. So like Look at what those charts all look like, and then say you got Netflix, maybe Spotify still, and then you have to say to yourself, where does ACAD fit into that category? Right? I'm not trying to rag on ACAD, but you think about it like that. Right? You only need 6 to 10. Right? You only need 10% positions to be 100% invested in the market. So, and if you buy it right, a 10% position is like very easy to hold, right? Nothing too stressful. Yeah, I'm watching all the stocks you just heard me mention, Naylor. All the names you just heard me talk about are all the ones that I am definitely watching. Right? And some of those I own. Right? I own Uber. I own Tesla. I own Toast. I own TMDX. I own Netflix. I own CrowdStrike. I own CLS. I once had Palantir just under $100, and I sold it on the earnings gap down like a total schmuck. But hindsight's 2020. I didn't want to give back another $10 a share. I did do a good job of trimming some, but I just got rid of my last shares. I didn't respect the 20 like a total bozo. I also had Hood. I bought it at like $50 and stopped myself out the next day at 46, and then I bought it at 49 and stopped myself out at low day the same day at 48, and then it went without me over 53 or 51.30. So that kind of sucked. I also had Soxel perfectly, and I had Amazon at 193 perfectly. So I've made some mistakes here, but very like not like nor Soxel or Amazon were any kind of meaningful losses. Hood was the only one where it was like some kind of meaningful money that I took a loss on, but wasn't even that big a deal. And then, I've got all these other working positions that have just, such a healthy environment. Things are just working well. So it's just a matter of sitting there. Are there any entry tactics for the day once you find a setup? Of course there are. You've got to break over pre-market highs. You got to break over prior day high. You got to break of a 5-minute opening range break. You got 620 setups. I mean, there's a lot of entry tactics out there. You just got to know which one fits, the criteria of the setup that it is you're trading, right? If you're buying an earnings gap or, something like sometimes even a break over prior day high, pre-market high, after hours high is the setup. Sometimes a simple 5-minute opening range break. If you want to get in a little bit faster, sometimes even a 1-minute opening range break, a 3-minute opening range break. Depends your time frame. I like 5-minute personally. I like 620 setups. Is it really an EP for Saddle though? I don't know. It's too thin for me. And usually EPs occur on earnings. Did Saddle just report earnings? Doesn't look like they did. So I don't know how I would consider this an episodic pivot unless there was news. And it doesn't look like there is. So EPs mean the story has changed. There's big earnings. There was an earnings beat. The stock was neglected. Usually that's what episodic pivots mean. And it doesn't look like Saddle does meet that requirement. How meaningful is a failed breakout like the one on VRNA? It doesn't look like a failed breakout to me. You mean the one where this thing basically just fails here and then comes right back? The issue is a simple one. Look at how, first of all, I charted this thing up a couple times. This thing had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 entries basically along the uptrend here. And then, this thing finally goes from like teens all the way to, 70. Needs some real sideways. And I mean, it still looks fine. I mean, I don't think this is so much of a failed breakout as it is just still building out a bigger base after a humongous move, which it still needs more sideways, in my opinion, before an even bigger move. Like, I want to catch a move like this, right? I don't want to catch a little squirt higher. So it needs a bigger base. Michael, You emphasize focusing on stocks and strong industry groups for your style. Which time period or group ranking performance do you weight heaviest in your scanning? 1, 3 month, or longer? I like 3 month, but really what I like to do, instead of just saying, I like to know if the group is getting stronger or weaker. So like if a stock was in group number 40 6 months ago, and now it's group number 27 3 months ago, and now it's group number 18. 1 month from now, I know that the group's strengthening versus the inverse of that, right? Like if 3 months ago it was group number 8, and then 3 months ago, right? And so just like if it starts to drop off the list, like by the time you get 1 month away, it's now group 40. It's like starting to actually weaken. But the way I like to just think about it is, don't overcomplicate that part of it. Just say to yourself, first of all, does it have a good technical setup? Okay, great. Does this company that I'm looking at have some sort of earnings and sales, right? That's what's going to give it duration. Is it in a good theme, right? People forget why Archer's running. It's in the aerospace and defense theme. It might be one of the strongest groups in the market right now. I believe it's group number 4, aerospace and defense. So, don't be too surprised that Archer's doing what it's doing, even without great earnings and sales. It had a nice technical setup. It's in a top 5 group, and a bunch of stocks in its group are obviously going higher, and the market's going higher, right? Now, the cherry on top is, does it have good earnings and sales? If it does, amazing. If it doesn't, not so amazing. But I don't put too much more weight on one versus the other. I just like to scan through the stock showing the most relative strength over the last month, 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, right? And then obviously I add some dollar volume constraints to it. So I'm not looking at stocks that are super, super illiquid for me, right? It's just a waste of my time to look at them. And then, I can add some filters for earnings and sales. If they got good earnings and sales, just add those constraints as well, right? I need it to be trading, call it $40 million. And then I would like it to have, at least 20% quarter over quarter EPS and sales growth. Not always a constraint, but Doug, you're in 5 of those big ones with everything run off so far. I feel like I'm bottom fishing for others. Yeah, Doug, don't do that. This is exactly what I've been telling people in the Discord, right? You did your job already. Job is done, right? And you should have already peeled some into strength. Now you just sit back, relax, know that the ones you're in, you want them to pull back. You want them to consolidate. You want them to tighten up, because those are the ones you want to add to. The ones that have been acting best, I want to add more to Uber. I want to add more to Tesla. I want to get back in Hood, right? I want to add some more Netflix. I want to add like the best names I want to add to, right? I don't want to bottom fish the crap, the ones that have hardly gone. And then what do you think happens to those quote unquote crappier ones if these better ones start to pull back and consolidate, right? The crappier ones are going to get hit, and like all the market has to do is go down for 2-3 days. And the stocks that are like below their 200 or that haven't been acting all that great, those are the ones most likely to get beaten out. So I think that's like really important to remember is don't go bottom fishing, own the best, leave the rest, right? And then just let the best set up again for you to add to them, or wait for other stocks that are, in a good group with good earnings and sales, good technicals with a 200 that's trending up. And, you can find yourself into those as well. But in the meantime, don't go bottom fishing, right? Bottom fishing is for the laggards. You don't want to own laggards. Trust me. FINV got over the 50. Undercut and rally. Yeah, it could be. Could also be a higher low setup, right? You'd have to take out this, little pivot here. $9 as well. Just a series of higher lows, right? Higher low, higher low, higher low, right? Maybe. But over $9, or it really could just be losing the 50. We don't really know. Again, the issue with stocks like FINV, it only trades $7.3 million per day. Nobody's really trading this thing. That's the problem. Nobody's really trading it at all. Yeah, Google has a good inside bar setup, and it's kind of breaking out today. Shame the way that Amazon, didn't close strong on me, and I cut myself out of it, thinking I was some smart ass, and then it took off without me. Right, I owned it literally 193 as it was trying to get over this little pivot, and then I cut it same day, end of day. It did nothing the next day, and then gapped up overnight on the weekend. Oh well. Prath, you got to ask that one more time, brother. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. How long of sideways should we consider if stock grows 4 to 7x? Oh, so if the stock goes from like $5 to 20, I mean, you need some sideways there. But I'm confused. A lot of stocks haven't grown 4 to 7x, even in the last 7 weeks. Right? Like even a Palantir is only up 2x. It's only up 100%. So what stocks are you looking at that have gone up 4 to 7? Am I missing something? Yeah, Hertz. Bill Ackman will pump anything. That man's got no shame, honestly. Talked about Nike this, Nike that. Man sold all his commons, bought some options instead. I mean, he'll pump anything. He's pumping FNMA, then he's pumping Hertz. I mean, God, I don't really know. He owns Uber with me, so he could pump that. That would be nice. Yeah, I saw that TSSI. Yeah, I saw that yesterday. Again, issue for me was super small volume, but awesome trend. And then obviously pull back pretty nasty, back up above the 200. Good earnings today, opening up at 12. Yeah, I mean, if you can get yourself into this thing, pretty much over yesterday's highs would be a nice little 5-minute opening range break. Thoughts on DRS? DRS was on my watch list for a while. DRS looks just fine. Right, kind of a nasty shakeout candle here, but just hanging out above the 20. DRS was on my radar along with like KTOS, LOAR, MRCY, aerospace and defense. I was putting this on the watch list. 3770 was the spot that I had this on the watch list in the Discord. 3770. And then, nice to see. Yeah, I'm watching Google, but I probably won't buy it. One, it's a little slower. Two, it's still underneath the 200, right? Google likely ends up going higher. But, this stock moves 3% per day. I'd rather just wait, for a better name, better setup. Do I like Oscar here? I like that it's holding the 200. That's what I like. Other than that, it's got this little bull flag going on. So, maybe if it can get going out of this little bull flag pattern. Right, kind of that's what it looks like. Likely needs to clear 1750s to get rolling. That's what it looks like. Hey, thanks, brother. I appreciate you, man. Happy I can help, and happy to see so many people come in the mornings and join. So makes it worth doing because there's a bunch of questions. SRAD. What do I think of SRAD? Man, this was the best setup right here. This huge amount of sideways kind of had just gotten over the 200, right? Just this long consolidation period. And then it gaps up on earnings on a big pickup in volume. right? Love, you take your entry here on a 5-minute opening range break, or you would use a high volume close the very next day. So your close here, 1431, you'd come in the next day and buy it over 1431. And there you go. And then you had another setup right over here. Right over this little pivot effectively. And then gone some more. But yeah, SRAD up here. I mean, could it go? Yeah, I mean, I guess it could. I just don't love this setup as much. Depends. What group is it in? Let's take a peek. Software application. Can't hate too much. It's all right. It's all right. Not special. Not that special. But looks okay. I mean, clearly in an uptrend. So that's even more important than anything. It's in a decent group. Any thoughts on UNH? It looked like yesterday there was a really nice setup on the right side of the V. Right? Lance Brightstein style. I would have bought it 255. But, you know, it's you know, probably bottomed yesterday. Look at this absolutely massive volume that came in, right? Capitulation volume. And then, you know, yesterday was absolutely insane. But, you know, do you really want to own United Healthcare with, you know, no momentum? I mean, sure, it might have bottomed, which is nice. And so you could buy it today, you know, risking off yesterday's lows, and you'd be risking, you know, 12%. So if you size right, you know exactly what your loss is, and you can just own like a, you know, a 4% position in United Healthcare for the next 5 years, and I'm sure you'll do okay. I mean, but no other opinions on it other than that. I like buying stocks with momentum. I was making fun of that Weiss guy because I heard on my trade exchange that he had bought this thing like one of these 2 days, right? And then I heard that he bought it again, like down here. Like, what kind of moron do you got to be, you know, to buy this thing in a downtrend below the 200? But yeah, Corey, I agree. I agree. We need some sideways. EVLV gapping above 52-week highs on pre-announced earnings. Can this be considered an EP? This is a big base. That's interesting. Yeah, it could be. It's just so thin, right? It's like, you know, it's thin. You know, if you could find yourself in like an opening range break on this, and then it really pushes away from your entry, you know, could be pretty nice. I mean, then what I like about this is this thing has shown to have momentum when it gets moving, right? This thing can double in a really quick period. So, you know, maybe, just maybe, this thing gets going over this big base, which it's over it technically right now, right? We're close to $5, and, you know, maybe this thing's got a 50% move in it quickly. Who knows? Just only trades 10 million bucks a day, so. Yeah, OB, I have a link on my page. You know, Lucas placed majority of his size. Yeah. But I know he had a position already, and then he bought more in this gap down. And then, you know, he bought some at like 290s and then 280s. And then he bought some more yesterday. But guys, okay, fine. You know, but just because Lucas is doing something does not mean that anybody else should be doing something, right? I have major respect for him, and I know how bright he is. So, but his trading plan might not be the same as everybody else's, right? That's just the reality. So just be careful, you know, following somebody down a downtrending stock, because you only need to find yourself in one set. You fall in love with the wrong stock one time, right? And what if Lucas was over here telling people, I bought some more here, and then I bought some more here, and then I bought some more here. Well, is everybody going to follow him down that same path? Like, you have to have your own trading plan, right? Just because Lucas did it doesn't mean you guys should be doing it, right? It's like he's assuming the risk because he knows what his risk is. But if you're just blindly following somebody and he doesn't tell you what his risk plan is, then you're just kind of blindly following somebody. Yeah, thoughts on MA? Yeah, again, it's a cup, but there's no handle. Again, the other reason I wouldn't trade MA is it's so slow, right? I mean, look at this absolutely monstrosity of a move, and you're like, oh, it's up 24%. Like, it's so slow. And it's not just MA, it's also Visa, right? Again, same crap. Right? You'd look at this, you'd be like, wow, 20%. But yeah, there's a cup. Now it's got to build a handle. Visa's fine. Yeah, I'm not going to hate on Visa. I'm not going to hate on MasterCard. Got both of those in my wallet. So thoughts on MSTR if you didn't cover already? It's just building out a base. It needs to build out a base. I personally love that it sold off some yesterday. It needs to, right? Like, just these 80% moves, guys, and just in a straight line, no ebb and flow, no consolidation. Like, do you see how big this move here was? But look at the consolidation before that, right? Look at the consolidation. That is just a thing of beauty, right? There you go. A big move up, and then a long period of sideways, right? A big move up, and then a nice long period. I didn't really like this period of sideways as much. And then another move up, and now you just need some sideways again. That's what stocks do. That's literally what stocks do. And just to get too excited about it because it's up here, like, oh my God, I'm going to miss something. Okay, so then you miss it. Who cares? Yeah. I mean, the minimum 10 million, right? You don't have to trade names less liquid than 10 million. That would be like a good starting point. So like if you're trading with 100,000, even 50,000, right? 20 million. I mean, you can go to 10 million, 8 million. You really don't want to go less than that. What you don't want is for one person to be able to move your stock. That's what you don't want, right? Because you really want to be in the stocks that'll give you the least amount of headache. What stocks will give you the least amount of headache? Institutional quality. You think institutions can buy stocks that only trade $10 million a day? Yeah, options expiration. Yeah, I think it was what's his name? Tim Chanos or something like that, where he longed Bitcoin. Well, you don't understand that trade. So MSTR trades at a net asset value of 2 to 1, 2.5 to 1. So if you're buying MSTR at this price, you're basically paying $200,000 for Bitcoin. That's effectively what it is. Yeah, Jim Chanos. So what he's doing is he's basically playing the spread. So he's doing what Michael Saylor is doing, coincidentally. What's Michael Saylor doing? Anybody know? Michael Saylor is selling MSTR to buy Bitcoin. So he's just doing what Michael Saylor is doing, which, by the way, is the smart thing to do, in my opinion. He's literally selling MSTR hand over fist as often as he can. And because they own Bitcoin, right, people buy MSTR as a, yeah, his average is getting kind of high. I mean, not if he keeps buying Bitcoin and it keeps going up. It's a huge circle jerk of money, right? You got Howard Nutlick, as I like to call him, who owns Cantor Fitzgerald, or he's associated with them. They're basically helping MSTR dilute 21 billion, and then to buy more Bitcoin. Howard Nutlick owns a bunch of Bitcoin himself. So, he just wants to see. I mean, they're all doing the same crap. It's a GME's now doing the same thing. ASST's now doing the same thing. They're all getting into it, man. It's just a circle jerk of money. Again, and it's why shorting it is a little tricky, because Howard has a vested interest in seeing MSTR go higher. So he'll basically help sell the farm to make sure that MSTR can raise capital, so that it's like it's a fucking I don't want to talk about it. Stupid, honestly. Like I said, it's a big old circle jerk of money. Yeah, and MSTR, before they started buying Bitcoin, where it was a dying company. Their company, yeah, SMLR, another one. MSTR is a failing business. Like, they're only a prospering business because they own a bunch of Bitcoin, but effectively they're a failing business now. Like, they're doing the apps or whatever the hell they were doing in the past. That's a failing business. Yeah, I mean, either Bitcoin is a zero or it's a hero, right? Like, I don't know if there's anything more to say about it. But I'll say this. I mean, Bitcoin acts fantastic. Bitcoin acts great. My thoughts on coin. I think, coin is still above the 200, so nothing negative there. Obviously, a little pickup in volume on the way down. It's not the best, but it's above the 200. It's got to build out sideways. I would like to see it take out this little pivot here. So this ugly down day on 221, let's go ahead and take out that little flat base. Let's consolidate just under that 265 level for as long as possible. And then, ideally the market and Bitcoin are both ripping on the day where I go to buy it. And we're off to the races. I mean, it's above the 200. Rigetti. I mean, these names are funny. Yeah, I don't really like these trending channels, but maybe these people don't seem to be done with these quantum stocks. And like QUBT, they did like $36,000 in revenue. I mean, that's like a huge joke, right? I wish I were joking about that. How you're even publicly listed, or how you can even pay employees when you only do $36 billion in revenue, is some serious kind of a joke. What's my favorite quantum computing stock? How about Google? Or how about, even better, the one that's at a new all-time high, IBM? How about that one? The people who have been working on quantum, I don't know, for 40 years. Those dudes. That's my favorite quantum computing stock. Yeah, I mean, IBM is the leader. It's at new 52-week highs again. Another cup. Some sideways here for a handle would be nice, but a lot of stocks have just been saying we don't need a handle. We're just going to go higher, which is great. But I mean, what am I supposed to do about that, right? I can't really chase stocks. Stocks as they were getting back above their 50. I'll remember this for later, but when they're getting, like, I was watching this SE, all right, come off the 100 or the 200 and bounce, and I was literally watching this in mid-April, and when it got above its 50 was the time to have bought it. Should have bought some 126, and then it just kept going. I mean, pretty incredible. Talking about another 30% move in 3 weeks. I don't really trade IPOs, AMTM. Yeah, I don't really trade this young of IPOs, but nice little bull flag. Enough liquidity there, 40 million bucks per day, roughly. It looks like it's going through its due diligence phase. Yeah, kind of annoying for my style too, but we had like these lower cheat setups. Like Netflix had this nice little flat base, right? Uber had this nice reclaim of the 50, which I got into. Palantir had that nice little flat base right here, which is where I bought the gap up. Literally right here, 423. CrowdStrike, which I also still own, had that very similar setup. So there were setups. They were just, not everybody's favorite kind of setups. So it wasn't like some high type flag. It was more like a, kind of like a flat base, but not perfect, back above the 50. So anyway, guys, I got to get ready for stream. Thank you all for being here. Happy Friday. Don't forget, play through the highs and the lows. Thank you guys again for being here. 2,300 people is kind of insane. So I will see you guys. Please have a super safe weekend. Have a fun time with family. And I will see you guys on Monday, same time as always. So cheers, everybody. Have a great weekend.